Minister Luke Pollard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm in particular grateful for the Right Honourable Member for Chingford and Woodford Green for initiating this timely debate, which is an honour to close. And I'm grateful for all the superb contributions, Madam Deputy Speaker, on both sides of the House. I think I'm especially grateful for the powerful advocacy for those members who have just returned from Ukraine to share their experiences of what is going on in Ukraine and telling the story of the brutality of the Russian onslaught. I've been in a bomb shelter in Kyiv as the air raid sirens sound. It's a sobering experience. It's one that stays with you, and it must. And it's a reminder of the daily courage of our Ukrainian friends as they resist Putin's illegal invasion. Today we've had the opportunity to reflect on the most unhappy of anniversaries. 3 years this week since Putin's illegal full-scale invasion of Ukraine. 3 years in which thousands of people have lost their lives. Millions of Ukrainian families have seen their homes and communities destroyed. Ukrainian children stolen by Russia. And although Russian troops continue to make small territorial gains, both nations have become deadlocked in a war of attrition. But this was a war that Putin believed he could win in 3 days. Thanks to the extraordinary resistance and courage of Ukraine, Russia has been humbled on the battlefield. 3 days have turned into 3 years, and today is 1,099 days. Go on, quickly.
Very quickly. The whole House will recall that when Russian tanks were bearing down on Kyiv, President Zelensky was offered a ride out for his own personal safety. He famously replied, "I don't need a ride, I need ammunition." That was Churchillian heroism, wasn't it?
I think all parties in this House have rightfully praised President Zelensky, the democratically elected leader of Ukraine. It is right that we continue to stand with him and his people for as long as it takes. And that's what I will come on to in these remarks. Putin's resources have been drastically worn down, with over 860,000 Russian soldiers killed or wounded. The UK government expects the grim milestone of 1 million Russian casualties to be achieved in the coming months. Nearly 4,000 main battle tanks, 8,400 armoured vehicles have been lost, and the damage and destruction of the once formidable Black Sea Fleet is testament to what a nation without a navy can now do with the right equipment and approach. But let's not forget, over 3 years, the UK has often been the first to step up to help Ukraine. This year, we will spend £4.5 billion on military assistance, more than ever before. To date, the UK has provided £12.8 billion of support, as well as training over 51,000 Ukrainian personnel with our allies as part of Operation Interflex. And we have committed £3 billion a year for as long as it takes in military support. We have continued to strengthen Ukraine in recent weeks. Earlier this month, we announced a new £150 million firepower package, including drones, tanks and air defence systems. On Monday, the Defence Secretary announced we are doubling our support to Ukraine's life-saving defence medical services with a £20 million uplift in funding for Project Renovator. The UK has been repairing and upgrading a military rehabilitation hospital in Ukraine and providing training to Ukrainian surgeons, doctors and nurses, and this funding will provide a major boost for this project. It will help Ukrainian soldiers recover from frontline service and help those who have suffered life-changing injuries defending Ukraine's sovereignty. Also on Monday, we heard from the Home Secretary how we are turning the tables on Putin by blocking Russian elites and oligarchs from entering the UK. And the Foreign Secretary announced the largest package of sanctions since the early days of the conflict, which aim to hit Russia's revenue and hamper Vladimir Putin's military machine. Standing alongside our allies, we will do what's necessary to support Ukraine and keep Europe and Britain safe. The UK is solidifying our historic 100-year partnership with Ukraine, signed by the Prime Minister and President Zelensky in Kyiv in January, bolstering cooperation on defence and security and more, and importantly, signalling our confidence that in 100 years' time, there will still be a free and sovereign Ukraine. I now turn to some of the important questions that have been raised in today's debates. On negotiations, while Russia is weakened, it remains a significant military threat, not just to Ukraine, but to the whole of Europe and the United Kingdom as well. Ukraine is the front line of freedom, and our defence and security begins on that front line in eastern Ukraine. That's why the decisions made in negotiations over the coming weeks and months will not only define the outcome of this conflict, but also the shape of European and global security for decades to come. Everyone wants this war to end, none more so than the Ukrainian people. They need a chance to rebuild their shattered nation. So the efforts by President Trump's administration to find a solution to the crisis are welcome. But the resulting peace cannot be achieved at any price. That would be an insult to Ukraine, whose armed forces continue to fight with enormous courage and skill, and whose population continues to endure unimaginable hardships. When the fighting stops, it must be followed by a strong, stable, durable, lasting peace. That means a deal that safeguards Ukraine's sovereignty, an end to Russian aggression, not a temporary ceasefire before Putin finds an excuse to return to violence, a lasting, durable peace, because an insecure peace risks more war, and a US backstop is the only way to achieve a durable and lasting peace. The government's position is clear. Negotiations about Ukraine cannot happen without Ukraine. At the same time, it is right that the UK and Europe plays our part in securing the peace. It is our security that is being negotiated as well as Ukraine's. We have to work together with the US to achieve a sustained peace and protect the democracy that both the US and Europe hold so dear. That's why the Prime Minister has said that a US security guarantee in Ukraine is critical to stop Putin from attacking again. It is welcome that we're now talking about negotiations. But as a defence minister, let me remind the House that we must not jeopardise the peace by forgetting about the war. President Trump has long expressed his wish for Europe to step up and take more responsibility for its own security. And he is right. Indeed, we are responding to that challenge. We are stepping up. Earlier this week, the Prime Minister announced the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We are bringing forward our Labour manifesto commitment to spend 2.5% on GDP on defence to 2027, back to a level that has not been achieved since 2010, when Labour was last in government. Ahead of his visit to Washington today, the Prime Minister also announced, subject to our economic and fiscal conditions and aligned with our strategic and operational needs, that we will also set a clear ambition for defence spending to rise to 3% in the next Parliament. Through our strategic defence review that will be published in the spring, we are assessing the threats Britain faces and building the defence capabilities we need to meet them. We are also cutting waste in the Ministry of Defence, reforming procurement, and reforming recruitment, including addressing some of the outdated medical standards that have been raised in this debate. We're prioritising investment in UK defence industries. And as a result, our armed forces will once again become fit to fight a modern war, learning the lessons from Ukraine and adapting to the evolving threats we face. Because we know that strengthening defence is the only way to win peace by deterring conflict, but defeating it if necessary. We're also stepping up and encouraging all our NATO allies to be spending at least 2% on defence, and with Britain spending 2.5% on defence from 2027, setting a new benchmark for others to follow as well. 2 weeks ago, I was leading a UK trade delegation in Ukraine with our Dutch and Norwegian colleagues. More joint ventures, more investment, more tech transfers of knowledge and data sharing in both directions is what we were talking about. This week, I visited Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Denmark and the Netherlands to discuss with our close allies how we step up our collective support for Ukraine. Madam Deputy Speaker, the United Kingdom will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. Slava Ukraini.
See you later, lads.